Welcome back, everybody. Today, we again have Gail Naas on our show and my lovely wife, Michelle, joining us for a discussion, a follow-up discussion. Gail, I met with you last week and had my first colon hydrotherapy experience.
Well, yes, you did. And number one, I really enjoyed our first podcast that we did. I thoroughly enjoyed being of service and being able to give you a colon hydrotherapy session, your first ever. And I'm extremely excited to come back and talk to you and your wife, Michelle, about your experiences. Yes. So thank you for having me back.
And for those joining us,
exciting. It was exciting, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. And I actually, so I had you on my show on a previous episode, and I had asked a gazillion questions because not having had that experience, I wanted to know what was coming. So if anyone hasn't had that colon hydrotherapy experience and they're thinking about going, and all the questions that you might have in your head before going there, I believe, look up that previous podcast. It was very in depth. And Michelle, you have had colon hydrotherapy before.
For years.
So I thought it would be nice to have you on. So this is after the fact, and I get to be a little bit, vulnerable here, telling about my first experience. And we have the professional Gail to answer any additional questions that might come up. So, when I got to your place, I thought, wow, this is sweet. It was a spa close to the ocean. Had that whole spa ocean environment kind of thing. We saw some massage rooms on the way in, a place to do manicures, pedicures, and you had saunas in the rooms where there were massage therapy.
True. Yes. I'm so glad that you mentioned it. Unique to our spa is that we have individual private wet steam rooms attached to every massage therapy room. And so when you go and get a massage, you have the opportunity to get private steam and an exfoliation if you like, then shower off and then lay down on the table. The therapist comes back in and gives a great 1 hour massage.
And I also noticed, again, I like massage therapy. One of the rooms had the things hanging from the ceiling that, you can actually have people walking on your spine.
It's called Ashiatsu. And yes, we do have one room that's equipped with those bars so that you can receive that therapy as well.
And we made our way through the entire big location, to the back of the facility where the plumbing is.
Yep. We do need plumbing. We do need plumbing.
Was the colon hydrotherapy room, which was nice in the back in its private little area with its own facilities for restroom, changing room.
Dedicated restroom, so you can change and you can use the restroom before and after the session without having to leave the confines of the private room.
Nice.
And I noticed that, the colon hydrotherapy unit is kind of like mounted to the wall, and there was a series of, I believe, 6 filters going into it. For what purpose?
Well, okay, so thank you. Putting filtered water into the body is extremely important. It's just not city tap water, because I'm not going to drink that. So what we have to do is we have to make sure that the water is extremely clean that's going into your body, because the large intestine's job is to recycle water from the waste material coming out of the small intestine, and then it goes into the large intestine, and then it gets reabsorbed into the body, and that goes straight to the liver. So if you are uptaking toxic material into the liver, then you're just overtaxing the rest of the body.
Yeah. And, it's interesting because a carbon filter, I think, takes like 99.9% of the impurities out of the water. And if you have 6 of them in a row, I'm guessing you're getting pretty pure, straight H2O at that point.
Correct.
You had mentioned that a lot of people for their first colon hydrotherapy sessions, were you nervous the first time you went?
Yeah, very nervous.
Okay.
It's uncomfortable.
Okay.
And the first person who did it for me was an older man named Izzy. I don't know if you know that name.
Oh, I remember Izzy. Yeah.
Is he still around?
No, he transitioned years ago.
Oh, God bless him and his wife, Michelle. I would go to
Yes.
his place on 84 in Davie,
Correct.
and he was just awesome. It was my first time, and he just made me feel so comfortable, even though he kept forgetting my name, which is Michelle, his wife's name. But we got a good laugh at it. So, and I would do every year 3 sessions with him. And then I found someone else in Hollywood and started going to her.
Very good. I'm glad you found both of them. And he is dear, sweet, sweetheart.
Love him
God bless
so
his
much.
soul.
And reflexology I used to do with him as well.
Yeah, he's a leader. He was a leader in the reflexology world, definitely.
Yeah.
And in our colon hydrotherapy world, yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
So you had a great therapist.
I sure did. I sure did.
And I
But
would
you were
imagine,
nervous the first time. I'm sorry, Mike?
I would imagine, you know, if you're chosen this profession, you're going to be pretty professional because you have to be. And if you're not, you're probably not going to last anyway. So
true. True. Well, you know, people are going to be nervous, and they're supposed to be nervous because they've never had it done before. So your nervous system is working just beautifully when you're nervous. So we allow that to be. We acknowledge that, we allow it, and you eventually move through it when it's right for you, right?
Yeah.
So it's part of my job, and actually, you know, my honor to be able to just be in the space to allow you to hold space for you, to be a presence for that, to let that move through, because that's really important, to allow it instead of just having to cover it up and brave it through. And because then I have a client that doesn't want to show me that they're nervous, and then that's just a lot of extra work, right, for the client to go through, and that doesn't allow the body to release, which is what they're there for.
You know, it's funny because that was probably me. I don't want anyone to know that I'm nervous. And I wasn't up until a point, and you did prepare me, and you told me, you know, people will get on the table and you'll say, okay, you know, sit this way, and they'll sit that way instead. And, you know, you'll tell them how to do everything, and they'll do it all opposite of what you suggested. But I knew that going in. So I think I followed instructions. Did I do anything?
You did really well. You did really well. You passed the test.
All right. Very, very, very nice. And then, you know, you gave very specific instructions of what to do beforehand, and you know, take off everything and put this robe on, open in the back. But I had to check, because did she say tie it in the back or leave it open and stuff? You know, so I'm supposed to be completely naked instead of this, but this robe with open, and okay, can I wear my socks? Because I don't want to be like naked under the robe. So I wear my socks, and, you know,
Perfect.
Cozy feet.
Can I at least have my socks on? Yes, you can also, very often if people come in with a shirt and pants on, their shirts can stay on as well. We just need the waist down area to be available. And we do like it open in the, I'm sorry, what?
He got completely naked.
No, I had my socks on. And
without your shirt though.
And a very professional robe that covered a lot. So yeah, we were good.
Oh,
yeah, funny. It's the typical treatment gown, you know, that does open in the back, and there's no reason to close it in the back. As you walk out, I don't see your back at all. You lay down, and then I cover you with a towel from the waist down as well. So I am an extremely modest therapist.
Yeah.
And I fully expect my clients to be just as modest as I am.
I'm very modest. We've been married for 2.5 years, and she hasn't even seen me naked yet. So
you keep your socks on?
He keeps his socks on. Sometimes a beanie.
I like my beanie. I like to stay warm and cozy. That's like the socks thing, you know. You got to keep your feet warm.
And your ears.
And yeah, Mom told me if I, you know, keep my ears warm, I'll never get sick. And so.
Hey, Mom.
And then when it came to, you know, okay, we're situated on the table, we're going to sit this way. And then it got real. It's like, oh, this is really happening. So now I started to get a little bit nervous. But it was really very, professional and comfortable and painless. I'm one of those people where, I can't be in the same space having a bowel movement or urinating or whatever like that, stage fright and everything. It's just, it's one of those things, I need my own private little space. So this is the first time sharing that space in a sense with someone else. And, but it was okay. I was I was very comfortable.
Very good, thank you. Well, one of the reasons I think that people are more comfortable there than using a restroom with other people around is that our body naturally makes us some noises, and there's other processes that could happen, and that is kind of daunting to do in front or with around other people. Where in a colon hydrotherapy session, number one, you're with a professional. Number two, the speculum is attached to some tubes, and the waste tube that is attached to the speculum. Okay, I have to back up here. The speculum is inserted into your body. It has two openings at the very end. One is for a water line to go through, and one is for the waste hose to come out. So by the time that things leave your body, you're already distanced from that. And then it goes through a 4-foot tube and then into our device where you can see we lovingly call them the stuffies, as it goes through the view tube. And then you can take a look at that before it goes straight to the sewer. So it's kind of there's a disconnect by that time.
Yes.
Is what I think. Yeah.
Just to clarify, you said ViewTube, not YouTube. It's not going to be on YouTube.
Correct. Well, some of my clients have posted on Instagram they've gotten out their camera and said, watch this.
And the speculum, the insertion, you offered me the option of, do I want to help you with that, or you want me to do it? And go ahead. I'm sure you've done it 1,000 times. So and you showed me how it works and how there was something that kind of makes it go in easier, and then that part comes out, and you showed me how it would be anchored underneath, so I didn't have to fear about it, having a blowout and it shooting out or anything. There was a little anchor to it that's kind of tucked underneath me, which you very quickly snuck in there because I didn't even notice you do it. And I said, well, did you anchor? Yeah, I already did that. Okay. When you had me moving on the table and getting in the position, I guess. And then you mentioned there would be probably a series of fills, and that the first fill would be on a small fill. And you told me what I would feel with the water temperature and where I would feel that and everything like that. And yes, it was exactly as you had described. If I missed anything?
No, I think that you're doing really, really well. I do like to just give instructions or information one step ahead as we go through the process. So, because I hate surprises. I really don't. I don't do well with surprises in my life or in my therapy treatments. No matter what kind of therapy I'm receiving, just tell me ahead. So I know a little bit. And so if when I do that, hopefully there's no surprises for my client. And you're right. The first fill is an educational fill so that your body can learn about how that's going to feel, because that's a new feeling as well. Everything is new the first time. So we do like to describe that. So may I describe a little bit about that for our listeners? Okay. So when we start, what we do is we allow the water to go in and water and potential waste to come out at the same time. It's just a cycle. And we call that an empty cycle. So it's the emptying part of a fill and empty cycle. And we call it the empty cycle because if your contents of your large intestine want to empty out at that time, it could. Normally in the first couple of minutes, we don't see anything. It's clear water because it's kind of like on a rinse cycle. and your body is getting used to the water. It's getting used to the room, the sound of my voice, everything else that's going on. And the water starts to soften the fecal matter. That's what we want it to do. We want the water to do the work. So we just let all that process go. So you've got water going in, water and waste going out. It's coming out of your body easily because that's the path of least resistance. However, we want to get the entire large intestine, the entire 5 feet of that large intestine with water in it so we can soften all of fecal matter in there and then let that come out. So we have to do a fill. that stops the path of least resistance from coming out, and it actually goes further in. And we do that at a very, very low rate. In fact, for those listeners who have experience doing enemas, you can deliver up to 5 pounds per square inch of pressure by giving yourself an enema. And on a fill in a professional colon hydrotherapy device, you are at a 0.5 pound per square inch. So 4.5 pounds per square inch less pressure than a typical enema. So much easier, much easier. And you don't have to get up and sit on the toilet and, you know, all of that. It's all handled right there comfortably.
Yeah. And I have had coffee enemas before, and yes, there's a, you know, you feel a pressure and an urgency, and I didn't really experience that at all.
You didn't?
With colonic irrigation. No.
Oh.
No.
They call me the gentle one, and that's why.
Because usually when I would get my colonics, I would be like, oh no, stop. Because I would feel like I was about to explode.
Yeah.
And she would check to see how much water I was taking in. And she would say, I need you to get a little bit past this line. And then next time, get past this line to fill up more and more.
Well, during a first time ever colon hydrotherapy session, I'm not going to push that envelope at all.
Mm.
All right. For my experienced colon hydrotherapy receivers, they know that envelope, right?
Yeah.
But if a client says stop, I'm going to stop. And so for our listening audience, that means that the way that we make the path of least resistance go further in the colon instead of coming out is that I do change a lever on my machine. So it doesn't allow the water to come back out, which means that the water is going to fill. And normally what people feel when they're about full is pressure at the rectum, which is where all those wonderful nerve endings are. And then they just say stop, and we release. I find that pushing that envelope at all during the first session is just not as beneficial as just allowing the body to do what it wants to do, when and how it wants to do it. But my more experienced colon hydrotherapy receivers, they will push that envelope. Yeah.
And do you encourage pushing that envelope?
Not all the time, no. I don't. But that is a typical. It's going up to your threshold. But I want my clients to be as comfortable as possible. So and when in doubt, we stop. We just stop. It's like, no.
And because you can always continue and do another fill, another release, another fill until you feel like you're done enough.
And not all colon hydrotherapy sessions are the same. In fact, I've had hundreds and not 2 of them are ever the same.
Oh.
So there are times when all you need to do is put that speculum inside my body, turn the water on, and I might release for 45 minutes straight. Then there's other times that I need a little bit more encouragement and I have to fill and release to get something going. There's times where abdominal massage will help trigger the releases. A mechanical, more of an action needs to happen. And there's times that I don't want somebody to touch my abdomen. And there's times where somebody can do reflexology, like Izzy used to do on the feet, and get another release to happen. So it depends on what bag of tools that the therapist, whatever their background is, brings into the session that they'll go ahead and use. I've used craniosacral and things like that.
How often do you get them done?
Well, It's kind of like the shoemaker's kids. So I get them done as often as I possibly can. I get them done immediately if I start feeling a sore throat or scratchiness at the back of my throat. When I think that I'm about to come down with something, I will get on the table immediately, because I know that if I allow my body to help, if I allow myself to have something help get rid of the toxins that are dumping into my colon and get that out of my body, the faster that process will be. Germs can't live in high heat, right? So we have fevers for a purpose. That's our body's own innate intelligence to say, hey, something's going on. Let's heat up. Let's get something done here. Let's burn off these germs. And maybe we need to surround it with a lot of mucus, right? Which is why we get a cold, we get stuffy nose, so we can get out the mucus. Well, our body wants to exit those things out of our bodies. So if you get a colon hydrotherapy session, then that happens to go faster. In fact, I can readily remember 3 times in my life when I've had a spike fever. If there was, excuse me for the audience that's listening, if there was an orifice in my body that could be oozing something, it was. My glands were swollen. I felt awful. And I got on the table, I got a colonic, and during my session, my fever broke. Wow. During my session, my glands went back down to normal, and I was able to go back to work after that.
That's awesome.
So that's when I really get in there and get something done in a preventive way, just because I happen to like to feel good. I will at least try, after hundreds and hundreds of colon hydrotherapy sessions, I'll do at least 4 times a year.
Yeah.
One for the season. I have people come for seasonally, and there's 4 seasons, and so we do 1 a season. I've got people that come to me on their birthdays every year.
That's when I would get it done. Every year, my birthday, and then I would schedule for 3 of them for 1 year. Yeah. And I would just do it once a month, January, February, March, and then be done.
Very good.
Well, I want to go back into the procedure a little bit, just to talk about some of the things that people would expect that might happen. You had mentioned that you could kind of force a fill, in a sense, close the valve, but then you also, and this is getting a little maybe personal for me, and that's okay. You mentioned, you said that was a spontaneous release. Is a spontaneous release going against that valve closed, or does that mean that what is it? What's happening?
Okay, so for me, a spontaneous release is that when there's just water running in and coming out at the same time, that your body says, okay, I can go ahead and release whatever's there. The presence of water inside the large intestine is going to trigger something that's called peristaltic behavior, which is your muscle movement. And so if there's enough water going by and things are starting to move around, and because while we're doing our colon hydrotherapy, your body is still working, right? So if it decides like, I'm going to go ahead and release, it can spontaneously go ahead and release. And when I said that, I hadn't been doing massage right before that. We didn't do a fill. There was no other action going on except your body saying, I'm going to release.
All right, so now we're going to get a little graphic here, okay? Because a lot of people are just listening only, and so I'm being a little descriptive here, a little transparent. Here's this view tube, and the first thing I see looks like this slinky kind of, I don't know, those, like those door springs that when you were a kid you would, the door stoppers, and you hit them and they doing. And if you stretched one out, it was almost like a coiled kind of, I don't know what it was. Now, it went by kind of quick, so I didn't get to see. But there's only way we would know what that was if we caught it, but it went where?
It went where? Well, it went into the sewer.
It went right out to the sewer.
It
So
went right out to the sewer. We get good things can go by very, very quickly, and then it goes right out to the sewer. We can collect, and some of the devices, there are ways that we can collect specimens, and we've done that before.
oh,
And
okay.
then once you collect them, you can put them underneath the microscope.
But for most people, everything's just going right out into the sanitary waste
Hose and then
city.
into the view tube and then right out into the sewer, just like a toilet sewer.
As if you flush the toilet. Goodbye.
Yep, that's
There we
it.
go.
Yeah.
And then I guess if you do enough fills and people eventually stop releasing, 6 filtered water, spring water comes out of a person, right?
Yeah. Well, so Dr. Mike, there's always more to release. There's
Yeah.
always more to release. And so we target a 45-minute mark, and sometimes we close a little early, a couple minutes, and sometimes we have to go a little late because your body is in one of those releases, and there's no stopping it if it's in the middle of a release. But we wait for a quiet time where you're only releasing clear water, and then we bring the session to a close.
Okay.
Typically, how long does one session last?
45 minutes.
45.
It's targeted for 45 minutes.
Yeah. And then after that, like I remember after the session, I would go into the bathroom and I would be there for maybe another 10 minutes.
Yes. So although when we're closing down the session and you're just emptying clear water, it's a nice quiet time to go ahead and close the session down. And I allow that as much water. And at that time, you might have another release. So I have to turn the water back on and rinse that through. But we wait until it's nice and quiet. And as much water comes out of you as possible. And then, and we'll wait as long as possible for that to happen. But when you turn over to your left side and the speculum comes out, you sit up, all the water that's left inside of you, if there's any, and there normally is, then gravity will take effect on that. So you'll need to sit down on the toilet just to make sure that you can evacuate the rest. And it's different. Just like there's no 2 colon hydrotherapy sessions that are the same, no 2 after the experiences are ever the same either. Sometimes you release a lot more into the toilet, which is just fine. And then sometimes not at all. So yeah. it's all different. What I care about is we get water in and we get water and waste out. So if that happens on the table or if that happens in the restroom later, whatever happens. And sometimes people are so nervous, so nervous that it doesn't happen until the toilet.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I think I emptied out in the machine on the toilet. No, it's funny because you said, well, some people might, think, oh, well, this is a weight loss thing. It's not. It's a cleansing thing. The reason when I got home and got on the scale was 3 pounds lighter is because I was no longer full of feces.
Exactly. Well, and that could be a very, very typical experience, is that people feel so much lighter and brighter and because the weight of their bowel is different, right? And it's kind of fun sometimes when somebody knows that they've lost a lot of weight. It's not that they've lost body mass and body weight, they've lost the weight of fecal material. Right? So when people look at it as a weight loss plan, I get concerned because it's not about weight loss. And I have had many people, believe it or not, that have been so dehydrated before that they absorb so much of the water that they've actually gained a couple of pounds. And that gets very depressing. If you're on a weight loss regimen and you gain weight because you've gained enough water weight, and that doesn't last, folks, for those people that are concerned about their weight, it doesn't last. It's just that you are that dehydrated that the body just uptakes all that water and says, I'm going to take it. And if that's the case, then we're really working a lot on hydrating the body more than just taking care of the colon.
Right.
in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, awesome.
How do you feel now?
I feel great. And
I want to make an appointment for a session.
I'd be happy to, even though it's not January, February, and March yet.
Doesn't matter. Well, I haven't done it in probably 3 years. So
Okay.
I'm overdue. I do coffee enemas, which I love doing those, but get a little deeper.
Yeah, coffee enemas are fantastic. For those listeners, Mike and Michelle can tell you about their experiences, or you can go to the Gerson Institute for instructions and information and videos about how to give yourself a coffee enema.
Yeah.
They're valuable, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. And, like you mentioned, not as cleansing, probably getting just a lower section of the large intestine, maybe just the rectum. But there's the descending, the transverse, the ascending on the other side. And you had indicated it's about 5 feet of large intestine. Who knows how much you're getting with a coffee enema? Maybe you're cleansing a foot of it.
Enemas are designed 8 to 10 inches to clean out 8 to 10 inches of the most distal end of the colon, where colon hydrotherapy, it's intended to get the entire 5 feet of colon. So, and what's also important here is that if you take that colon and you cut it open and spread it out, it's going to fill a volleyball field. It has that much surface area. So that's just a lot to expect from an enema.
Yeah. And on that same note, it's interesting if you think about the surface area with all the folds and the, projections and then transverse projections on them, the surface area being compacted in there, stuff that, I liked your analogy of the lasagna pan. Because yes, you put the lasagna pan in there, and if you wash it, there's still layers on, and if you soak it and wash it again, or you can just soak it really good, and everything loosens up and comes out. And
exactly,
it seemed to me that was my experience on the colonic irrigation table.
Yeah, like I said, there's always more. There's always more, because while we're doing colon hydrotherapy, your body is still processing what you ate the day before and the day before that and the day before that. And if you don't have good transit time, then you're still processing what you had last week.
And you get to see it in the view tube too. At one point I was like, look, there's the strawberries.
We talk a lot about chewing.
Well, what I saw was, when you eat strawberries, there's like those little things that get stuck in your teeth. They're almost like little pieces of wood.
Yeah, seeds.
And yes, and you saw water with a bunch of those on the bottom. It's like, yeah, that was my strawberry smoothie last night. So there it goes. Bye.
Well, that's good. Yesterday, I saw a lot of potato skins. And my client says, "Oh my goodness, I really did not eat that potato well." And it was evident. It was evident. It was potato skins. It was like, oh,
wow.
So chewing your food is really important. If you don't chew your food and mix it with the saliva in your mouth, which has the amylase, carbohydrate digestion starts in the mouth. So if you don't chew your food and get that to a very liquid state before you swallow it, your stomach can't identify with it and work with it. And so it just keeps bogging down the system and passing through, and then it goes, potato skins come out. And, I laugh about that and I'll joke about that with my clients, but I come from where I speak, because during one of my sessions 25 years ago, I had a wonderful salad the night before, and I had made all this fresh organic stuff and chopped it up, and I spent the money on the salad, and I put black olives in there, and I sliced the black olives, and so I could spread out that wonderful taste throughout my entire salad, and I ate it. And the next day I had a colonic, and half a black olive without a tooth mark on it came tumbling through the clear water. And I'm going, why did I bother spending the money?
What a waste of food.
I got no nutrients out of that at all. Not even a tooth mark on it.
You didn't
So-
even taste that piece.
No, I didn't. There's nothing, there's no benefit nowhere.
Yeah, I like people to understand, when you're chewing your food, because ultimately you really do very little digesting. When you chew up your food, you're preparing it for your microbiome to do the digesting. They consume it and process it and digest it for you, turning it into this biosludge of their excretions that your intestines sink into and absorb the nutrients from their efforts. But we need to chew our food and prepare it for them. I wonder what it would be like doing a colonic irrigation on a competitive food eater. Those competition guys, like I forget his name.
Eater,
yeah. We'll go in. Not there goes an olive. There goes half a hot dog. There's another half a hot dog, because they eat like 30 hot dogs in about 10 minutes.
I
There
never
they
thought
go.
that. Yeah, that would be a challenge. That would be a hard challenge.
Gail, I want to thank you so much. You're very professional. You have a beautiful facility there in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And it was just a
Thank you.
great experience. So thank you so much for
Thank you.
joining me here and walking me through my first colonic irrigation.
All of it was a pleasure, Doctor. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And Michelle, I hope to see you soon.
Thank you. I look forward to it.
One more thing, anyone in the Fort Lauderdale area, or heck, I'm sure people drive from all over Florida to come
I
to you.
do.
What's the best phone number to call?
Well, the spa name is Elena Europa Spa, but the best phone number to call me is my direct line, which is 954-931-4950. Again, that's 954-931-4950 is my direct line.
Okay,
Awesome.
great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's nice to meet you.
Thank you.